Oh God, I don't want to get in
your
Christina's
arms are
shot.
flapping, you're flapping
I cannot be expressive.
No.
Oh my
Bruna's
God,
like, yeah, Christina's like,
Christine, we can't use Christina's single because I've got my hands everywhere. Hi, I'm Bruna Papandrea, film and TV producer, female founder, and CEO. And this is Invisible Roadmap, a show about the people who build extraordinary lives without a roadmap. No connections, no shortcuts, just grit, courage, and belief. Each week, I sit down with successful people to uncover their decisions, the failures, and the moments that define their lives, and the unpaved paths they took to get there. Welcome, Laura Brown and Kristina O'Neill to Invisible Roadmap.
Thank you.
This is a podcast where we meet extraordinary people like you guys, and we talk about the kind of circuitous journeys that you took to get where you are today. So, Laura, I'll start with you.
Thanks for having us.
So just to put it in perspective, you guys have just written a book together called All the Cool Girls Get Fired.
That's right.
That I've been lucky enough to read.
You got a big scoop.
I'm hoping no one will fire me. No, the only reason I had to start my own company is so no one would ever fire me again. So I'm good for a minute there.
Employee number one.
Employee number one, that's me. Laura, you and I share a few things in common.
Yes.
We're both from Australia.
That's
Australia.
true. Oh, yeah.
We both grew up in government housing.
Sure did. Housing Commission for the win.
That's right, Housing Commission. For the Americans who don't know what that is, essentially that's...
It's like
what's it called here? It's
subsidized
like
housing,
subsidized
housing.
I mean, it makes
Welfare
sense,
housing.
but that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, it was low income housing.
Low income housing.
Yeah.
We also both, I think, for the most part, were raised by single mothers
moms.
who worked
Oh yeah.
to support our families.
Yeah.
So take me back to Camden in New South Wales.
Oh my God, you really remember it.
Oh, I know.
I feel so seen. Yeah, I was born in Camden, New South Wales, which was a farming town, which is about an hour outside of Sydney. And back in the day, you would say if you were from Camden, you're a Westie, and a Westie's like a redneck. And my dad was a dairy farmer. He was literally Richard Brown, Farmer Brown. And he was a dairy farmer, and he and my mum were married, and that's because I arrived. And I was born in 1974 and lived on the farm for 5 years until the divorce. 5 is weird because you sort of have this memory of like them both sitting and one's next to you on some couch and one's the other side.
Yeah.
And it's like bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you move. But it wasn't like, you're still young enough that it doesn't imprint that heavily, I guess. So Mum and I moved to Sydney, to Manly. And then we actually, speaking of, we weren't in the government housing yet. We had enough money to get me to Skeggs Redlands, which is a posh, fancy school, for 1 year. Then we ran out. So we were living in an apartment, and then we ended up, I think, getting into the government housing when I was probably just beginning high school.
Yeah.
Year 6 or year 7. So, yeah, lived all around the northern beaches, just me, like only child, single mum, low income, working very, very hard, throwing newspapers at me all the time, making sure I was like keeping up to date and eating my whole wheat bread. Yeah, but I think that's sort of, and also depends on the relationship you have with your parents, or I was extremely focused on getting myself out there into the world. I think being an only child, period, that's a bit like that. Especially like I was much more voluble than my mum. My mum is more restrained. And so I was like, I gotta go out in the world. I gotta go. And so I started working like when I was like 13 at my uncle's seafood restaurant.
We're like twins.
Yep, I know. I want my own mobility.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to exist in the world on my own terms. I don't want, and this is a big through line with me too, I don't want to rely on anyone. And so I started making money, and so I could buy my fashion items, you know, at like 13, 14, and I worked all the way through. So, yeah, that got me all the way through high school, where I was obsessed with fashion and obsessed with magazines. And especially back in the day, I mean, come on, when did I finish high school? 91-ish. Yeah. And it's like those magazines that came in, that landed from the US were so shiny, and just like they were from Oz, in Oz, of course, but just... I'm there and I'm in the city, and all I'm thinking about is that business and the arts and Hollywood and fashion, and how I'm sort of going to get myself there. So all the way through my high school, like I was, you know, working and buying clothes and dyeing my hair and reading magazines. And I always did well in school, you know, but I kind of knew even then that I wasn't going to stick around, I guess. Like it was... I went and I took myself off to London for a couple of years, but I was like revving, same as you, like just woo, 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 the whole time until you could kind of, that was a good revving noise.
It was.
Oh, damn, I don't even drive.
Record that.
And I was just like, I'm just really, like just sitting there at the gates, you know, until I could kind of screech off.
Yeah. No, we share that. I think, and you're describing your even being 13, and I worked from when I was 13. But the places we lived weren't big enough to kind of encapsulate what we wanted.
And they also weren't nice enough, or they weren't any of it. When you're really honest, you're like, I want my own life and I want to be out there, and this is kind of I know I love my parents and everything, but it's like they're not. It's not a estate, you know. It's not. You know, it's a little apartment, and you're like, you want to be out there, and it's like, it's depressing sometimes if you spend all your time in there. So that's also just a big reaction to your circumstance that you're like, gotta get out of there.
Yeah, 100%. Kristina, tell me about where you're from.
Yeah, so I grew up in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. My parents had both grown up in Arlington, Virginia, which is quite an affluent kind of, sort of like the first suburb.
Is Arlington where like the big military?
Exactly. So it's actually where my grandfather is buried. So my mother's side, my grandfather was in the Air Force. And on my father's side, my grandfather worked for the CIA. So they were both sort of...
Dun, dun, dun.
So they were both sort of, you know, DC brats, right?
Yeah.
And so when they got married, they wanted to move really far away from their parents. So they settled about 18 miles south.
Wow.
They moved a little further south.
Brave, so brave.
Exactly.
So brave.
They went really rogue. And raised me and my brother in a, you know, the way I sort of describe Woodbridge, Virginia is it is a strip mall town. Every other kind of, you know, complex is anchored by, you know, a nail salon, a dry cleaner, and a takeout blank food. Lots of supermarkets. You have your pick of supermarkets. But there was not a lot of glamour or ambition or, you know, if you wanted to do anything interesting, culturally relevant, you had to get yourself to DC. Obviously, DC is a very, very, it's like a village. So for me, the real kind of flashing lights moment was, you know, coming to New York City.
Yeah. And you did that to go to college?
I did that to come, I came here when I was 18 years old to study at NYU and never went home.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it's time.
Finishing school, you mean?
You finished school.
Finished school at 17.
Yeah.
Because I was young for my year, because I was obviously such a genius.
Yeah,
and
same.
And so I was young for my year, and then I started college at 17 because I was such a genius. And yeah, I went to Charles Sturt University, which was a very celebrated
in Bathurst.
media course. It's a big media sort of crowd. It's quite hard.
That's right. They're all in media.
Yeah, and so I did that for 3 years, and then because our degrees in Australia, our arts degrees are only 3 years. So I
And we go
graduated
straight to what university, they don't call it college, essentially. They call it university.
So I finished when I was 19 because I was such a genius.
Wow.
And, but no, I finished because I wanted to get working, so I finished my last paper sort of by correspondence. I was like, I'm out of here. So I started my first job at like 19 years old at Australian Family Magazine,
Wow.
which promptly closed down. It's a thing I do.
But what were your part-time jobs when you were
Always
growing up?
waitressing.
Always waitressing.
Always
I was
waitressing.
not a good waitress.
My uncle had a seafood place in Manly, in Shelley Beach. And so I was there until 17. And then when I went off to college, I just waitressed at local cafes and stuff. So I worked 6 years nonstop because I just loved having my own income, even if it wasn't that much.
But I always say this to young people, it's such a great way to learn how to communicate with people.
Yes.
Because
With
of the
grown-ups,
environment.
You're in the room.
Yeah.
You learn all of these social skills. You learn adult social skills.
Yeah.
You learn diplomacy.
Yeah.
You learn doing the work. No, every single person should wait tables in their life.
Did you do it?
I never waited tables, but I
She's a
did
mess.
work retail.
No,
Yeah, so
Which
I never
was
worked retail.
consumer
Yeah, so
facing.
same. It's all consumer
I
facing.
can fold a mean T-shirt
Yeah.
and
What was
jean.
your
I worked
retail?
at the Gap.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's like that's like so American.
I mean, it's
I
so
love
American.
it. Okay, so tell me both about like your first kind of entry points. Yours, Kristina, post college.
Yeah.
And yours, Laura, post college as well, I suppose.
So I guess,
I'm not
yeah.
saying Charles Sturt University is not a college. Sorry.
How dare you? It's a
I apologise. I
university.
apologise.
It's a very highly regarded university, Bruna. Yes, I started, my first job was at Australian Family Magazine, and it was had something to do with Ida Buttrose, I think, who was a
Wow.
big media maven in Australia. I can't remember what my job was, but yeah, what didn't last long. I think it was like 3 months, and then that closed down. And then I started at Mode magazine, which I mean, I don't know if this is global, but for Americans, Mode sort of fancied itself as like a W-ish kind of thing.
Okay.
And I started doing production there. And it was before you had like a computer grid of the damn magazine, so I would have to write it out with like a ruler and write the ads on it and chase everybody for. And it was really like tough. I said, that's a rough job, scheduling and where's your copy and blah, blah, blah. But all I wanted to do was like write and do stuff. So I put my hand up and go, oh, can I write about that Calvin Klein show that I saw with some in the newspaper or some hard images, photographs in an envelope? Can I do? And so it was a friend of mine who was a photo editor, who's my original gay husband, still is. And we ended up writing a little section there and writing more. So I did that for 2 years. I just wanted, again, just the doing is the doing. You just want to do it.
Yeah.
And until 97, when me and 3 girlfriends saved up no money really and went off to London to backpack, and I'd never left the country. And I remember the ticket was $620 one way to London. I swear to God, we're in the back with the chickens. I don't even know if this aircraft was like legal. The pilot let us in the cockpit. He swerved it all around. We just moved. I'd never left the country. I just moved to London.
Yeah.
And backpacked around for like 3 months. It's like it's just so Aussie.
I mean, even though probably working in production and learning that side of it wasn't for you, did ultimately understanding every part of how that worked help you when you became editors?
Oh yeah, I'm number one, and I'll pass it to Kristina. But like also in Australia, the teams are so small.
Yeah.
So your big magazine might have 16 people working there. So you just had to know it. No, you were so well prepared for when I came here. But I remember when I first came here, and I started working at W magazine later, and everything was so segmented. And you write a feature, but you wouldn't know what the picture looked like. And I'd be like, huh? I was so used to all of it, so I think it ends up behooving you. You end up doing so much better if you do know how to do all of it.
My first magazine jobs were weeklies, so that's trial by fire, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very luxurious pace to work at a monthly magazine, which is where we ended. But that weekly just kind of being, turning it around, churning through, was super helpful. But my first job was actually while I was still in college. We had an assignment in my journalism class, to interview someone. And at the time, I was a huge fan of the New York Observer and of Candace Bushnell's writing. Yeah. And so I looked her up. I called 411, standing at the payphone outside of Dean and DeLuca on University Place.
God, I know it so well. Oh my God.
And 10th Street, and called Candace Bushnell herself. She picked up the phone. And
you just looked up her number in the phone book.
Yes, I called the directory. They gave it away. And I asked for, I said, I'm a student at NYU. I know you went to NYU. I'm a huge fan of your writing, and I'd love to interview you for a school project. And she said, sure, come on up. So I went to 79th Street, where she was living at the time, on a fold-out sofa.
She was living on a fold-out sofa.
She was living on a fold-out sofa.
She was a writer.
Spent some time interviewing her. I guess she ended up liking what I wrote. I sent it to her. And we kind of kept in touch. And she called me and said, we were chatting. Maybe I called her after the piece came out, make sure she liked it. And I said, if you ever need any help or, you need an assistant. So she said, I love this. Yes, please come work for me. So I started working for her 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, all day, because my classes started at night. And I was her assistant. And she would come home from nights out with copy, like one-liners, brilliant little observations that she had made, crumpled up on cocktail napkins. Oh my God. I'd walk in the morning, and there would just be like crumpled, napkins next to the typewriter. And I would type up these lines of text for her that she would then use in her storytelling, whether it was, Carrie, Samantha. These were the characters who we all, have obviously since fallen in love with. But the reason why I think she was sleeping on the fold-out sofa was because she spent all of her money on clothes.
Right.
This was a woman
Taylor's old as time.
Looked the part. I remember her coming home with the Gucci white dress with the cutout.
I saw my belly.
and it needed some dry cleaning, so I had to take that to the dry cleaner, always getting her Manolos repaired. But, you know, she would invest in brand canvas.
That's such a great job. I mean, but I think I love that story so much. And I think we all share this. And I say this to young people all the time, which is like, I mean, you just made the cold call. You looked up you go to London, go to a fashion show. You know what? I can write about this. I've done this before. I've said, I knew someone was kind of looking and they were like, well, if you were in New York, I go, oh, I'm actually there. And I'll just get on a plane and be there and pretend I'm there. And that's
now
sometimes created the best opportunities. And sometimes you just have to kind of, you know, fortune does favor the bold, I think.
You got to get there.
Yeah. Well, you're both very entrepreneurial, I think. And I think that's, you know, partly, of course, what led to you being able to kind of manage and run teams and innovate.
But also, like, I think that especially as Australians, like, I used to say to kids all the time, because I also moved here right before September 11th, but really bad timing empirically. but I say to Aussies all the time, I said, what's your worst case scenario? Going back to beautiful Australia?
Yeah, I say that too.
It's like, just get on the plane. You got a bit of money, you've got a nice family at home, if you're so lucky to have all of that, just do it.
So you go to London.
I did.
Just talk me through the kind of abridged version of like
crazy.
How London kind of shifts things for you, and then how that leads you back to New York.
Cemented the fashion part of it for me, because, you know, I was living in Islington with like 5 Aussies. I think at some point somebody was sleeping under a table in the living room. Like, I shared a bed for a year. I was working for an Australian media company, like doing freelance stuff, because I tried to be a freelance journalist, but no one knew me and they're all snobs. And I remember one day I didn't have enough money for a Diet Coke. I remember I didn't have like 25p for a Diet Coke. So I got this Australian company job, and then I would because we were in London, and London Fashion Week as well was like, that was it. That was the chef's kiss time. It was full on peak Kate Moss. It was like Clemence Ribeiro and Antonio Berardi, and everybody was cool. And so I would snaffle my way into that. But then, because guess what? London was next door to Paris, France. So I would say I was covering shows for Australian magazines that I was kind of throwing photographs in an envelope for in London, and say, I'm covering for Harper's Bazaar Australia, which had launched by then. Can I please go to the Martin Sipon show? I remember this very clearly. All right. And so I took myself to Paris for 4 days. I didn't know a single person. No one talked to me apart from a waiter. Everyone was rude. I sat in like the 15th row. And like, it was just, but
you loved
was
it.
There.
Yeah.
I was like, this experience is in my eyes. It's not secondhand. We used to, because in Australia pre-internet, everything was secondhand. It's my experience now too.
Yeah.
And that was like, once you've had that, there's no going back. If you're in, especially our business, which is journalism, which is experience and meeting, So I was pretty much set then that was going to be that. And then my visa expired, went home for 2 years, and then I turned up here in 2001.
But you turned up without a job.
Sure did. It's the only way to fly.
I say that's the way I roll.
Yeah.
So tell me, Kristina, what happens to you after the amazing Candace?
So I graduated. I had also been interning at Time Out New York, which was a great big deal back in the day.
That was such a big deal. When I was here around that exact same time, that was
and this, again, was
the
pre
Bible.
sort of internet. So you would get you would pick up the Village Voice and you would look at the Time Out listings, and this was how you got your information about cultural happenings. And so I had been part of the sort of style section at Time Out and got poached from there to New York Magazine. At New York Magazine, I was then writing Gotham Style, which was a weekly kind of style column. But I was also the party reporter, which was...
I did that for a minute too.
Such a great job.
I mean, it's one of those jobs.
When you're young.
It is the best job. Well, you end up at, Moomba, but then you're the one who's like tasked with, going and interrupting celebrities trying to have a nice night out.
How many hors d'oeuvres make a meal? 12?
Yeah, and you're like, eating, not drinking until you get all your quotes, and then drinking. Yeah. But running around with Patrick McMullen, who was the sort of big, party photographer at the time. So we were a duo, and so I had this weekly column, and then I would, basically I was like an event reporter, which is such good training. You have to just get in there. You have to introduce yourself. You have to get the story. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You have to come back with the goods. So that was great training. So after I did that for, like I said, I was working at a weekly, so I think I was there for about 7 months, which, in magazine years is a long time.
Dog years.
And I got the call to come to Harper's Bazaar.
And in what capacity?
So I started as a fashion features writer, which at the time, and this is to your point about bloated magazine mastheads, I was one of 8 people on the fashion features team alone. But that was the lowest man on the totem pole job. And again, it was, you really had to, this was before, information was provided. I had to research what was the fabric, what was, how would you describe that? I was calling, designers and PRs and showrooms and, trying to do all of this fashion reporting. But it was incredible training. And I started, as the lowest position on the team. And then our boss got fired. So this was like kind of a big deal in the magazine land. But being the sort of last person in when there was the regime change and the new boss came in and made a lot of top of masthead changes, I was sitting there like, okay, I'm here. Like, what can I do? And so that woman who replaced Kate, her name was Glenda Bailey, who ended up being
the Dame.
Dame Glenda Bailey. Wow.
So Dame Glenda came in, and I very sort of like quickly realized that this was a kind of either you're in or you're out, you're on or you're on with her, like what she wants to do or get out. And she made it very clear too. So a lot of people left. There was a lot of turmoil, a lot of change. And, I just stayed and kept working. But it was a time when so much in fashion magazines was really changing.
Shifting,
And I think this is why both Laura and I had so much success in the period that we were at Harper's Bazaar, was because what we were interested in personally, which was when fashion started to become part of the entertainment industry, and having those conversations where designers and celebrities were starting to kind of align and recognize that their power would be greater if everyone just sort of played ball. That was that era. Like,
the first pairings, the first evil pairings.
Yeah, and it was kind of an amazing, if you were interested in culture and you were interested in fashion, like, this was it.
You both have had those careers where you are interested in like kind of cultural
The
cosmology.
context.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's not one thing or the other.
Cut of that shoulder.
Yeah.
It's
Even though
like,
I can write and describe about the cut of the
yeah,
shoulder.
you sure can. But like, no, it was like, but all of these things are starting to feed each other.
Yeah.
And each one is relying on the other, especially like if it's like something as simple as Hollywood and the fashion industry, both were relying on each other for currency that would magnify both of them.
Yeah,
and
that
so
just exploded.
it was fascinating. It was big. It was very much monster creating. It was all of those things. And
But when did you?
Yeah, I was going to say we should back up because
Back
now
up,
we're
I
like,
want to know how you came to Harper's and then what that relationship
wanna
was.
do our
So I started in October 2000. And so I had been there for a minute, and the change in the editor-in-chief office happened in the sort of early summer of 2001.
Yeah.
So by that fall, the new team had kind of been in place, and I was, still on the squad and was sent to the Marc Jacobs show, which was on September 10th, 2001. And Mark had these sort of famous, long waits where you would, sit for a very long period of time waiting for, the clothes to sort of come back from the seamstresses and then be, fitted on the models while literally the audience is at packed capacity waiting for the show to start.
Aged. Yes.
Well, we aged. And that night was a slightly late show followed by a fantastic party for his first fragrance launch. So everyone was like sort of in it. It was a magical New York City night, September weather, which there's nothing like it if you're,
That's right now.
In New York in September.
And guess who else was there? Your girl.
So after the show,
Without a job. 6 days
after
in.
the show, that they open the walls and you're like, there's a bacchanal. Like
It was nothing I think we've even seen since.
Yeah.
It was, so I'd arrived, gotten there 6 days before. I was staying with my friend Libby Calloway. She was a fashion editor of the New York Post. We were in Chelsea, and I was like, gong! I don't know, for the audible. My eyes are on stalks. Libby must have introduced us.
Yeah, no, I knew Libby because she worked at the New York Post, and I had been on the sort of New York Magazine, Time Out New York. You run into the same handful of reporters at everything. So Libby and I knew each other, And she said, oh, come, you've got to meet my friend Laura Brown. So we stood there having a cocktail and chatted with Libby for a good 10, 15 minutes.
10, 15 minutes, and that was, so that in the show, that was at the party part, wasn't it?
This was at the party part.
Yeah, so we were just dazzled.
But it was like tables of grapes. I just remember more grapes.
It was also the New York where you just felt like you could do anything and it wanted you to succeed. The city wanted you to succeed.
Yeah,
I remember
so much energy.
I had a French girlfriend who I've now forgotten, but somebody I just met. But I remember tottering down, because I was on stupid shoes, tottering down to the point of the pier. And it was all AstroTurf, and I think it had been raining. I remember it was a bit squishy. And I remember looking down to the trade center with my friend and going, wow, I'm here. We're here. And then we wobbled back up into the party. Yeah. And that was September 10th, 2001.
Yeah, so the next day, obviously, the world changed.
I was literally right here. I was literally in an apartment building on Greenwich, right there.
Here.
I was so close. But what happens after the show? How do you end up at Harper's Bazaar?
So everybody in Australia, look, and as bad as it was, and we all know how bad it was here and how horrendous it was for the country and for everything, but on the television from Sydney, it looked like World War III.
Yeah.
I was my mum would call me up on my BlackBerry.
Same.
Oh, you need to come home. And I would be like, I'm just in Gristedes. I'm just buying tuna. No one realized that people were out that night. Everyone was out because you're in shock. And so it didn't really occur to me to a lot of Aussies left.
Yeah.
I was just like,
they did?
just got here. Yeah, you just completely don't know. You're just shocked, I guess. And I didn't I think I was just doing a little bit of, but I ended up freelancing a little bit for the New York Post, sometimes writing news, terrorism reports, and then doing fashion edit. It was so weird. And just sort of in this shock state. And I remember I didn't even have a freak out for about 3 weeks. And I think a friend of mine from London called me, and then I just was kind of oh God, I've just moved here. And
This
I was healthy and fine. I didn't lose anyone, but it was still just
it was.
You're still propelling yourself, and then you're wait a minute, I've just moved my entire life to this city, which is just fallen down, and we're at war and all of that. So, but I just kept I remember sticking my hand up for stuff, and then I was working for this Australian media company, and then I got a job, sort of a freelancey via this company, with Talk magazine. But then they hired me for to sort of wrangle actors and book young Hollywood things. And I remember walking into that office and going, what is this place? And again, I'd come from a 16-person team in Australia. It was a giant warehouse in Chelsea. It must have had 100 people in it. I remember their budget for a double-page spread of a magazine, could be one image spread, $40,000. And we're going $40,000 for one picture spread. And I just was what is this place? I'm there 6 weeks. I'm on. This is still one of the funniest things I've seen in my life. I went on a shoot to Los Angeles. It was a young Hollywood shoot, and the concept was enlist the famed photographer Melvin Sokolsky, who was the one that did all the models floating in the orbs above the Seine in Paris in the 60s. But the idea was this was young Hollywood, so they were emerging. So of course he was going to shoot them emerging from ostrich eggs. So in one corner were the ostrich eggs.
2000s magazine
with little
thinking.
cracks in them.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
And on the other side of the room, on some sort of plinth, where it would be an actor who would be pseudo-emerging from the egg. And so I'm there, and all these young actors are in, and I remember one Gabrielle Mucht was there, and all these sort of young folks. I got a phone call from someone. I went into the parking lot there from Chocolate. There's a staff meeting happening right now. The magazine's closing. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember I walked in, opened the studio door. Gabrielle Mucht is oiled up, shirtless, on a plinth with his arms like this.
This is your early research for your book. This is what happened.
Because
he was that far back.
Quote unquote emerging.
Oh my God.
So
they went literal.
And I was like, guys, there isn't a magazine anymore.
That's a wrap.
Eat the catering.
That's a wrap.
Call.
A wrap.
That's a wrap. So that was my second demise. So that got me to about the beginning of 2002, and then I started at W Magazine. God bless them. They were my first real job.
Yeah.
Here. So, and then I did that, and I was at Details, which sucked. W was interesting. It was very snobby and all of that. But I ended up falling once more into Christina's arms on Valentine's Day 2005.
Oh my God, you've got
When
such
I
a good
started.
memory.
I just remember it was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Just a particular. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any idea.
Yeah.
But I showed up as like an articles editor. I think it was. It was like a features editor.
And what were you doing at this point?
At that point, I was fashion features editor.
Right.
She'd
So
consolidated power.
You're moving fast.
Yeah,
You're moving up fast.
She pushed him out of the way with a sharp little
Moving
elbows.
on up.
not yet director, but on my way. And then very sort of quickly, once Lore started, we became sort of, equals in the kind of trust triangle that Glenda sort of had
Because
formed.
we didn't sort of mess around, I think. We weren't afraid of her. Like Glenda could be like really mad, but if you're afraid of her, you're just not going to get.
It's not. I think to just stand in power with others is really important and speak truth, because ultimately I think people like Glenda, who are obviously really good at their jobs,
Well, she
they
tests you.
want people who speak truth to them.
She would always test you and be like, I need the craziest thing done. And like you may not be able to do the crazy thing because the crazy thing was in fact crazy.
Yeah.
But you would manage it.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, no, that's not going to work but I'll do this. And
Yeah.
we would always have like another smart idea or another solution, or the results we both got were always good.
Yeah.
And always solid. So it's sort of thing like she puts like a brick on your head, you know what I mean, and sees if you can walk, and then like you just own her trust. And so I think we did end up with this kind of Bermuda Triangle for another like 10 years. Almost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time. So you
Was it
obviously
8 years
both
together.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and you
it was-
rise to editor.
Yeah, so I left in late 2012,
Yep.
which is when I got the call to move to the Journal. And
Wall Street Journal magazine.
yes.
But did the Wall Street Journal magazine exist at that time, or were you kind of relaunching it within the?
It did, but it was quiet.
Yeah.
It wasn't sort of where
you needed your flair.
I mean, they had a lovely editor. She decamped to the New York Times.
Right.
So it was a bit of a, like, not only did she leave, but she went to the Times.
Yeah.
So I think they were sort of like, all right, we need to play ball now, right? We need to get some energy in and really kind of, put this thing on the map and make it go. And, when I started, it wasn't quite the Harper's Bazaar Vogue rivalry, but, there was a
You
lot
brought
of
some style and
tension
culture
and
between
kind of
WSJ and
enthusiasm
T.
Yeah.
between WSJ and T, because she had kind of left, and so we were definitely, there was a lot of attention right out of the gate because of that, as well as, not that I had never been an editor-in-chief before. It wasn't that I was not, tried and tested. But I had certainly never been in the top job.
Yeah, and also trying to bring something new and kind of in some way invigorate, right?
And I came from fashion,
Yeah.
which I think in the universe of the Wall Street Journal was very like, ooh, like shiny.
Lucky them.
Yeah, so that was fun because, not being, and this I think I've sort of done a few times in my career, it's like not being core to what the like broader business like objectives are. Yeah. So if like the first 10 years of my career at Bazaar were kind of seeing the cultural kind of influences sort of, combine and explode into this, basically what we live with today.
Yeah.
Media in the sort of like 2010s to, 2020, I would say it was when you saw how technology and that kind of intercepted.
Yeah.
So that was a decade of incredible like growth and opportunity. But when I started at WSJ, I had a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
And
no, I think at this table we all had. I had the brick phone and I had the BlackBerry.
Remember the BlackBerry would light up when an email was coming through?
I
It
was the
so
last
exciting.
It felt
person
so modern, didn't
in
it?
magazines to get an iPhone.
You tried to
For a
claim that thing
visual
ages.
industry, for a
Yeah.
visual business,
miss
I
them.
really wanted to hold on to that keyboard as long as I could. But so that was so not only were you editing a print magazine, but suddenly you were a digital editor, a social media maven. Like you were suddenly wearing all these other hats that you had
And you have to evolve with the time. You have to evolve with
But you also have to
technology.
be the good thing. The blessing of journalism. It's so hard and so challenged. But the blessing of it is you're not a journalist unless you're a curious person. So you want to know about all of that. Otherwise, you're in the wrong job. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you can't
So it's
get
like
stuck.
you're-
I agree. And flexibility. So that's how I've survived in the film business. I'm super flexible.
Right.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah,
I
and
think
you have to be like, oh, what's next? What's next? Oh, okay. Or this isn't working. Or turn it around or whatever. What's that? What's that? What's that? Where the classic like journalists are very much like the shiny. Like that's like what we are. And then years go by because you've had all the benefit of all these different experiences with people. and you've sort of noted them all. But yeah, you should be like, okay, especially like we communicate in this way, but everyone's starting to communicate in this way. Well, I'm a communicator, so I better pay attention to that and better start utilizing that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's, what we both did. And so Kristina ditched me and left in 2012 to go to WSJ Magazine, I almost forgot. And I got the call from InStyle in 2016.
Right.
Early in 2016. And it's so funny, InStyle at the time was, again, quite a quiet, benign, but very large magazine. And I just sort of went in and did a bunch of speed dating with like Time Inc. executives. And Time Inc. used to be this storied, incredible, legendary business. Not when I arrived, honey. I think I heard like a death rattle. Like I walked in the door, I was like, oh. And it they verticalized themselves out of existence. But basically, I was only there for a few months, and I got the job in August, and then Trump was elected in November, and I think Time Inc. died not long after that. And so it was a real like, oh, you're in that. And then we got bought by something called Meredith Corporation, which is a bunch of like conservative guys from Des Moines who I actually liked a lot.
I think it's one thing to kind of run a magazine, but you both created like, you with the Badass Women dinners. I mean, I went to some of those dinners and like you would meet the most interesting people. And again, that I think speaks to the way that you as individuals kind of, you evolved the business, you created new things. Because I do think the thing about the creative business is you cannot sit still. Yeah. You have to create new things.
Oh,
you just have to continue to create new things.
Yeah, and I think that, and you do that sometimes, again, because you should want to, because it's exciting, and sometimes out of necessity, and that's where your fulfillment lies.
Yeah, so take us through to, what have we said, where are we, 2023 at this point, 2024?
2022.
Yeah.
So we were bought, and so I was bought by Dotdash November 22, and it was actually pretty funny, the CEO at the time was like, you just keep doing what you're doing. And of course, clearly he meant getting shit canned in 3 months. But but we February 2022, I got a call from. It was actually very, very funny. It was me and my husband and a very lovely boss, Liz, and she called me up, and he just made a joke in the back. Oh, Liz Vaccarello, this can't be good. And it actually wasn't. It was her with HR.
Oh, and God.
She goes, actually. No. And I got 20 minutes notice that my whole team was being laid off.
Oh,
and
God.
And I was like, oh. And I was there, and it was just like, oh my God, I'm sitting in the computer. It's Brown and our lovely cleaner Mary and I was like, guys, I just got fired. But then I had this 20 minutes notice, and I got to say, in the 20 minutes, I sent the chicest text of my life to my agent, who never had anything to work for me, because he was like,
Jason?
Bradley Singer.
Bradley, oh yes,
and he said, and I said, getting fired. Call you in 30. And he went, yes!
Sometimes it needs to happen.
Yeah,
Someone needs to.
But then, and so, we got on this big Zoom with my team. So they called like an all hands meeting 20 minutes later. And we're all on there. And then there's HR and poor Liz, who's a lovely person.
So they're basically doing a big Zoom firing.
Yeah,
oh, God.
Yeah. Laying us all off. And we were just like,
that's polite.
Oh, and also, like, I got to say, some of my team had sort of read the room. I always characterize myself, because I knew I was going to do my own thing. But I was like the dog out the window of the car.
Yeah.
I was like, what? But some of my team, I found out after we got fired, my photo department had already started their own business. And I was like, good for you, man. Like, and so it was a real shock. But that said, I was like, I remember just fielding. I remember I had my Nike Air Force sneakers on because I was supposed to go for some meeting somewhere. And I was on the edge of my bed with one leg on and one leg off for like 6 hours. Like I couldn't get up.
Yeah.
I'm in a deluge of texts and all these lovely, I say in the book, with this book we wrote, I'll tell you about that later, it's like a eulogy, like getting beautiful eulogies, but you're still alive.
Yeah.
People are telling you how terrific you are. It doesn't happen if you just leave your job. So I was like sort of shocked, but also like, oh, that's nice. And sort of shocked, but like, oh, do I have any money? Oh, I'm getting married in 2 months. Who's going to pay for that? Like all of that. So we were really all canned hard. But I was in a good and bad position of I was getting married 2 months later. So I was distracted by that. So I could be like, oh, I'll bugger it. I'll just do this and that, and we'll go get married. But in the same token, it was paying for a wedding with money that I didn't know where it was going to be.
Yeah.
6 months down the line.
Yeah.
Cut to Mrs. over here.
Well, it's funny. I'm just drawing a parallel that I don't think we've ever connected before, but I had 3 different editors-in-chief while I was at the Journal. And it was...
Journal?
Yes. So I was hired by
the paper, yeah. Sorry.
Robert Thompson,
Right.
who's now the CEO of News Corp, replaced by Jerry Baker, who then was replaced by Matt Murray. And then it was the new woman who had come in, who ultimately fired me. But just sort of thinking about that. So when you sort of go through these regime changes,
Right.
and you're not like, my spidey sense wasn't up initially.
Yeah.
Power of 3.
Well, you'd been
Yeah,
through
but
it.
now I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a second.
You'd
Like, this is
survived
the same
many
with like
changes.
Right. So I had sort of like lived through some, you know, it wasn't super tumultuous, like all of those shifts. Like I said, I was sort of like had my head down in the corner and kept on trucking. But the 4th editor of the Journal during my tenure was announced in late December 2022. And of course, I'm like, great, let's take a meeting. You know, trying to get on our calendar, trying to get on our calendar, trying to get on our calendar, trying to get on our calendar.
You're going to take meetings. It's just not going to be with me.
Yeah, literally. So she was officially started in February, and it was late April by the time a meeting actually stuck. And so that morning, you know, I was so excited. I had, you know, we had been preparing presentation after presentation to go in. I had stacks of things, you know, case studies.
It's like dead man walking.
Literally.
She had no idea she was dead man
She
walking.
loves
No
to prepare.
idea.
Oh my
She
God.
loves to prepare for her own demise. Yeah.
So I was like ready to go knock her socks off. And, you know, about 10 minutes before the meeting, it changed from her office to HR.
Oh God. Oh my God, America. It's just like, oh,
Brutal.
It's like a bad movie.
So I literally said to the team, I said,
This is like, you could not make it up.
I'll be right
It's like Jerry
back.
Maguire.
I'm going to
class.
go get fired.
Oh my God.
I said, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to
that's
go
a great
get fired. And their faces, they were all like, no.
But
Oh
at
my
the
God.
same time, so on that particular moment, speaking of sending texts,
Oh, yes.
so I sent a text to my agent, you sent a text to.
To Laura Brown.
Oh yes. See, this is how
Under
we
the
come
table. I'm under the table texting
I'm getting
her.
fired.
I'm getting the boot. Call me when you wake up, because she was traveling in South Africa. So, you know, but literally she was the first person who kind of like popped in because she had been through it. She had come through it. She was happy, and I knew she had a good lawyer.
I think the story goes that I
Yes.
know is that you guys met for a drink and you took a photo
Yeah, so
and you captioned it.
So on the way, so I was in South
All
Africa.
goes
Christina had called me, and I'd been like, okay, get a lawyer, da-da-da-da. Raced, well, didn't race, but I was coming back anyway. But I was raced back to
You
her,
raced back, you
her,
flew
her
back.
side. Flew back, and we were meeting a friend for a drink at the absurd Centurion bar thing, some Amex Centurion thing that's basically up in the air.
Private members club
Centurion
in Grand
Club
Central
like next
Terminal.
to Chrysler Building. And on the way down there, I sent her a text and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a picture of ourselves. We're going to look so cute. And we're going to caption it, all the cool girls get fired. I was just like set. I was like, this is what's happening. She's like, to her credit, because sometimes she'd just go, that's so dumb or whatever. But she went, okay. And so we had the drinks, so we were just sitting down for the drinks with some random PR people. And we took this picture, and it's so funny because the wine behind us is like no wine we could ever afford. Like it's a Centurion wine. And we posted it, went home, and it just started to go ding, 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 ding. Whoa, wow, you said that? Oh, that kind of actually happened to me, actually. Oh my God, really? Oh, no.
Someone
But
wrote,
just
I
this-
knew it.
I knew it because everyone's lying all the time. And we just was like watching this gunk, 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 these texts and thinking about it kind of all night. And Christina was obviously so much closer to it, still,
I
getting
was still
herself out of there.
At my job.
Yeah.
You were still like,
I mean,
kinda
I was
there.
grateful for it, but I was told late April and left mid-June.
Okay, so you had a
But,
couple
so I
of
wasn't
months,
like
yeah.
marched out with my
No.
box with my plant. Not that I had a plant, because I would kill a plant. But I wasn't like exited immediately,
Yeah.
which I was really grateful for
Yeah.
because it did give me time to say goodbye, write my last
Yeah.
ed letter, kind of bring some emotional perspective to
Yeah.
it that I would not have had if
Yeah.
my Zoom had been turned off and my email was
and
cut.
plan a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this particular night we're just like bing bong, bing, 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 go to bed, and we're both revving about it, obviously. And next morning, I think we worked out we were both in the bathroom, and Kristina called me and said, "I think this is a book," and I was like, "Yeah." Like right away. It wasn't even like,
Yeah.
is it? We were like, yes, it is. And that's
But it helps you both writers.
yeah, but
It helps she had an agent.
but it's like this is how we do it. Like the big headline or the big da-da-da is me, and then Kristina sort of does the grown up stuff too. And it sort of was that's how the process has been.
Yeah.
So we sold this book, but it's how the process has been the entire time, you know. And and God bless my long dormant agents.
Yeah. He finally had something to
put
do.
to work.
But he finally has now because it was a lead agent first, obviously. Who
He connected us to.
he connected
Alyssa,
us to her. But you know, when we wrote the proposal for the book at her dad Larry's 70th booze-soaked 70th birthday party in Virginia.
In Virginia.
And we just sat on this couch for 10 hours, just gonna and then sold at the end of that year.
Yeah.
Started writing in April 2023. And now here we are. And
That's
it's out
fast.
October
Yeah.
14. Yeah,
Yeah.
We were pushing our publishers to move it up because we were like, guys, you're not going to believe this. People get fired all the time.
But I love the way you kind of turned your own kind of, experience into like a big positive for other people. And I've been lucky enough to read the book. And
Right.
it is this, I learned stuff. I was like, it's such a help guide. And it's such a practical help guide, as well as like these bigger stories that are really inspirational because like with a breakup, you do come out the other end.
Yeah, and
And sometimes it is meant to be.
And it's not, we're not woo-wooey about it. It's like, yeah, it sucks at the time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it will end up doing you a favor if you let it.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole point is that our key word is ownership. You have to own the experience. You have to own your future. You have to own your decisions.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's something like this will shock you into that.
Yeah.
That's
tip
right.
you out of the nest. And you have to like brush yourself off and go, okay, what next? And we all have different time frames. Look, money makes a difference, obviously. You can have one day or a year, but you still get that moment. You still get that moment to go, actually, did that make me happy? Really? I don't know if it did. What made me more happy? Oh, am I 8 years old? What made me happy when and that's the real gift of it. So it's not so much like it's fate, it wasn't meant to be. It's like shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it also does not.
Yeah, and change is
it's not a-
ultimately, I think, very healthy.
and it's not a judgment on your own skills.
Yeah.
or
No.
your own
So
value.
many
That's the
firings
truth.
now are
Almost never.
beyond your control.
Almost never it's
Yeah.
a judgment, I think, on the
No, especially now. I mean, the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are being let go all the time. So if you attach, the other big message of the book is if you don't attach your value
to your work.
yeah, all your value to the
Yeah.
work. Of course, we do parts
well,
of
we
parts
do
of us.
partly because we love it. I mean, that's
Yes.
the hard thing. I
Yeah.
think when you love what you do, it's really hard not to attach it.
Yeah.
Exactly, but if the work goes away, then you go away, don't you? You know, I mean, you don't have anything to stand on, and like we sort of have this theory, like every bit of experience you've gained is a bit like a brick where you build a little platform, and you stand taller and taller and taller throughout your professional life, and it's only you that thinks you've gotten knocked off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're standing on this thing. It's only you, and especially women who generationally have had this issue. It's only the women who pick up the ball of shame and put it in their chest and go, I feel ashamed. No one else gives a toss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember how tall
You should write a
you've
book
stood.
about this.
Thank you so much.
So you had already registered LB Media. I know that
I
because
did.
you in your heart you knew, I think, instinctually, that it was going to be time. There were so many other things. You had a lot of areas of interest. So you're like, well, that's my plan.
Yeah, my plan was just to again, it's so funny, I'm just throwing a thread back to ownership. I think just after a long time, I wanted to control my own destiny. I knew that I had this sort of LB identity. Like, yes, I have a fashion universe, but I also was the Aussie girl who likes the animals and all that. So, like, had enough currency as myself. I think that I didn't always need to attach to a magazine. And there weren't any magazines to attach to, and I was over it. And I felt like I had insurance, even if I didn't know what I was going to do with it.
Yeah.
It was like I existed beyond this demented, declining business.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Kristina, what's your path look like?
I took the time in between to really sort of step back, and what we kind of, say in the book is really try to figure out what you love doing.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to have a few months in between where, I could really think. And the opportunities that were coming at me, a lot of them were more in the kind of consulting or, sort of a version of like working for myself or taking on a few clients. And being a contractor in that sense. But there was one opportunity that sort of like stuck in my head, and this was the CEO of Sotheby's who called me literally while I was still sitting at my desk at the Journal, and he said, you know, I heard what happened. I can't believe it. I don't want to believe it, but this means you're in, you know, in the market.
Available.
Yeah, you're on the market. You know, he sort of laid out what his idea for, you know, sort of ramping up media within the Sotheby's group could look like. And it was super appealing, but I just kept coming back to it's like, it's not a media company. Like I've always had, you know, this incredible infrastructure where you take it for granted when you're working for Hearst or News Corp. So I knew it would be scrappy. I knew it would be entrepreneurial. I knew it would be doing what I love, which part of it is making a magazine.
Yeah.
But it would be building, which are sort of the things that I was kind of flirting with when I was out of
And
work.
also learning new things.
And learning new things in a company that's 281 years old.
Yeah. But
it was
they
really
basically
thrilling.
create a job for you.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a tribute to you and who you are.
thank
And that kind of goes to what Laura says. Like, just because this thing went away, we are still who we
And you
are.
can
We have still created all
And
these
you can
things.
take what you've done for all of these years in this smaller world and apply it in the larger world. And that's where the real thrill is. Like Kristina is at a, you know, very historic auction house, and I also work with nonprofit now.
Yes.
You go in with like a different, when you've been fired, the next job you walk into, you are so conscious, of having lost the last job. Like you don't take a single meeting for granted. You are so happy to be there. You bring everything to it, but you also go in with like a little bit of guardrails, right? You're kind of like, you know what, in that last job, that staff was like my family.
Yeah.
Like these were people who, to this day, I get like
that's a
emotional
long
about,
time.
you know, having had to leave them behind. And so you go in, I'm like, you know what? Like I am good being your colleague.
Yeah.
Like this is that's pretty good. That's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you kind of go in and you're like, you know what? I need to be there at 5 p.m. to pick up my son from soccer or to do X, Y, and Z. And when you kind of go in and you're going to work really hard and you're not going to take one day of it for granted, but then everything that kind of goes around it, you're sort of prioritizing along with it.
Yeah. But I think that you've both been able to kind of create, you know, in some ways that for yourself now.
Yeah.
And write a book. And that's kind of amazing, you know.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's like, you know, this whole like women can have it all. But we don't want to have it all or prove it to everyone in some sort of bullshit idea. It's like, one of the best things I've learned as a professional woman is my limitations.
Yeah.
I think that this is a really
and to put up a
converse
boundary if you
idea.
need to.
It's just like, you know, actually I don't want to. I can't hack that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to spend my time with it. And there's no failing in that at all.
No.
And again, you're just coming back to
there's power in that, in fact.
there's power, and that's why I much prefer, I can't stand the word empowerment. I like the word power.
Yes.
Because it's like every single person, we all have power. Every single person who picks up this book, who lost their job in whatever sphere has power.
That's
the
right.
problem is they forget they have it for a little bit, and we're there to remind them.
It's
And
really
and-
destabilizing life
It is.
event to be fired. And so we hope that the book gives women permission to be proud of what they've built, to own it and be honest about it. The sooner you're honest with yourself. And usually it is just two people in a room, sometimes three if the HR person's there pushing the paper forward. You know, a lot of people walk out of that room and immediately start spinning it to themselves.
Of course, it's shame. I think there's a level of shame that people associate
And the sooner
with
you
it.
get rid of that.
Yeah. I think one of the things, I mean, again, not a foreign, but I did have a very famous partnership breakup. And what happened to me was, I had that same thing where a lot of people reached out to me and I was like, I'm fine. It's, you know, we're both going off to do different things. But I took a lot of meetings and a lot of people who approached me and said, and I knew I wanted to start my own business at that point because I wasn't good working for other people. But I took some really interesting meetings because I knew if I heard it, I would know it. And that's the other thing I say to people who have been fired or are looking for something new. You just take every meeting because sometimes I was excited about opportunities I didn't think I'd be excited about because you'd meet someone and you go, oh, hang on a minute. But they also see you and that gives you a kind of weird confidence. So I always say like just
it's very American.
kind of guess.
And it's weird. I
Yes,
think we both
very
Two
American.
Aussies learn this. One, take the meeting. I say that to people all the time. And sometimes I also just yell at them as an Aussie. And someone's like being a bit like, oh, I can't, I shouldn't, I didn't. I just go, this is America.
Yeah, this American can do anything.
This is America.
That's
like,
right.
Own your shit.
Opportunity.
Like, own what you've done
exactly.
and own what you can do.
Exactly.
And like, own what happens and own what's next, and don't buckle. And we swear to God, it's better.
Oh my God. Okay, so in closing, I'm going to ask you both two questions. I always think about this for myself. So, what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
No, I would say get on the plane.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's like could be on a T-shirt.
Get on the
That's so
plane.
you.
Well, I have an 18-year-old daughter.
There you go. So you're
So
right
a
in
lot
it.
of this is like not really speaking to myself. It's sort of speaking to
But that's
her.
that's right.
And I think so much of what, I mean, obviously we sort of talked about how rapidly evolving the landscape is. I think it's really important that you sort of hold on to the fundamentals, right? Like I'm always saying to her, just read. At the end of the day, if there's like 85 other skills that like are going to go away, no one can take away knowledge and no one can take away information and the way that you sort of process things.
Yeah.
So I think reading, and the more you kind of absorb the world around you, and that kind of, informs so many different things.
And it feeds you, I think. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then the other question is there one person, and I guess I know there was for me, or there was a few people, but that kind of changed your life or had significantly changed your path or a moment in time?
I would say it's more a moment in time. I just think it's when I landed in New York.
Yeah.
September the 10th, 2001.
Yeah.
Having the clash within 24 hours of my dream of New York and would not to sound pat, but the nightmare of New York, like in one day.
Yeah.
But having both of those experiences within a day consolidated my desire to be here.
Yeah.
And 25 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, was there a person? I think there's been many, 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 many people along the way, and we thank a lot of them in the acknowledgments of the book.
You're in the acknowledgments.
Oh, that's so nice.
Because you were razzle-dazzling the whole time.
But I think,
was razzling.
not that Laura changed my life in a day.
You're welcome.
But I do really believe in what we're building with this, idea and with the sort of platform of Cool Girls. And I would say that, this partnership has been, really personally fulfilling, as well as, sort of, not financially fulfilling yet, but
it comes. Money always follows. Money follows.
No, but I think it is quite interesting and pretty remarkable that, we started as two girls, in the 6th row at a fashion magazine. It's sort of like worked our way up and worked our way out and onto the other side,
No, I love that answer because it's an answer like for now.
Yeah.
Like, people can change your life at any point. Even though you've known each other a long time, you're doing this big thing together now.
I know, we're such a...
Life's just starting.
What a world, man. No, what would you say? What would you say? Because you can see story in movies, so much more. We can't do that at all, but it's sort of like, what a third act.
Yeah,
one of us has to go run to the other one in the airport or something.
Yeah. I
You know
think
what
this is actually just our second, and I think the third is like Jane. There was that amazing documentary about Jane Fonda where she has a life in 5 acts.
Yeah,
and she had, but between activism and marriages, career, it's an incredible documentary because you go,
yeah.
There's
No, I think
so
it's
much
for sure
more.
like a second. It's just I was trying to fit it into the movie making parameters.
It's true.
But no, we just had this long story for 25 years together, and it's just like it's so funny. We have correlations from where we're from, and we have correlations for sort of what made us.
Yes.
And what happened, and here we are.
Yeah.
Guys,
On this fancy podcast.
It's been a joy. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
So nice.
This was so fun.